Well, hi friends, welcome to Laugh Sew Create. If we haven't met, my name is Rebecca. On this channel, I like sharing with you sewing tutorials and creative ideas for upcycling materials that you may find in secondhand shops, thrift stores, charity shops, in order to keep them out of the landfill and recreate them into something beautiful. So today's tutorial, I am super excited to share with you an adorable little pouch pattern. Now then, first things first, it's super quick. Number two, it doesn't take a lot of supplies, so it's a perfect project to use when you have some back quarters laying around or some extra fabric. Number three, this is a free pattern. So it's actually AePooiM's, and I'll link it down below. I probably did not do justice to the name of the channel. She had for a coin pouch, which is so stinking cute. As Jess over at Oakler Roots loves to say, stinking cute, right? And super useful. You could use it for earbuds, coins, card holder. I actually modified it and made it into a little poo bag for when I walk the dogs. And the fun thing about it is you can adjust the loops on it to make the loop bigger so that it can fit on your belt when you're going walking. And then I also took the pattern and adapted it to a larger size pouch. So if you are looking for a pouch to make for makeup or some larger items, I will be sharing in the video how to make this larger version. So let's get started. The finished size of the small is going to be 2.5 inches in depth, 4¼ inches in width, and 4 inches in height. This larger size is going to finish at 3½ inches in depth, so you can kind of see the difference there. 8 inches in width, and then 5.5 inches in height. And then for the larger size, 1 piece of cotton, 1 piece of lining and interfacing, and you're going to cut it 16 inches by 12.5 inches. For this size, you will need to cut the cotton, the lining, as well as the interfacing, 11 inches by 7.5 inches. I've already interfaced my pieces with SF101. For the large, you'll need a 16-inch zipper. And for the small, you'll need a 7 7/8 inch zipper, or thereabouts. You can start off with a longer zipper if you have one. So let's talk tabs. Depending on the use, you can use a longer tab or shorter one. So for instance, on this one, since I'm using it for dog walking, you could potentially make it even a longer tab or a bigger tab so that you can strap it onto a belt when you're walking. Could use ribbon if you wanted to, or cotton twill. Here's another idea for the tab. You can also use leftover zipper that you cut off. And what I did here was I sewed it together and then I put a rivet in it. So that's a fun way to tie in the colors and also to reuse some of your scraps. It's just one side of the little zipper, but I've made a tab that is 2 inches in width and 4 inches in height, and you just bring in the raw edges. You'll fold it in half and press, and then bring in the raw edges to the center line and press it again, and then in half once again, and then you're going to sew down. Now for this one, I used cotton on the exterior, a waterproof canvas on the interior. So it's based on what the purpose of your little pouch is going to be. Going to make the small version, I would encourage you to use lighter fabrics. The waterproof canvas was fine. You could use pull vinyl on the interior as well, just because you have such a small working space when you're turning it. So for the project, you'll need an iron and an ironing board, a rotary cutter, and a grid ruler, snips and scissors, air erasable or disappearing ink marker, something with a tip that you can push out the corners once you're turning the little pouch, some pins or clips, zipper by the yard or zipper. I prefer to use a longer zipper, and I'll explain why later. And the zipper heads, A label, if you are wanting to use a label in anything that you need for that label, depending on if it's a sew-in or if you have rivets. So some double-sided tape is also helpful if you have some. If not, no worries. So the first step is to adhere your interfacing to the wrong side of your feature fabric. You want to make sure, if you're using SF101, you want to make sure you're placing your bumpy side, which is your glue, on the wrong side of the fabric, and then use a pressing cloth and follow the directions of whatever interfacing you're using. Give it a little spritz of water and then press it. You don't want to drag it back and forth because that's how you can get wrinkles. Okay, so you'll need your, I'm using a friction pen, but whatever water soluble or air soluble marker that you need, go ahead and grab that, and your ruler. Taking the exterior fabric, I'm going to draw a line across, looking at it lengthwise, and I'm going to draw it 9 inches and 3/4 up. Okay, and basically you're going to just take the lining and put it under so that you can cut both at the same time. Okay, so as you can see, you have one big piece that is 9 3/4 inches, and then the other smaller piece, the shallower piece, is 6 inches and 6 1/4 inches. So that's for the large. But for the smaller pouch, I'm going to be doing 4 3/4 inches up from the bottom. I'm going to you're going. Okay, so once it's been divided, you're going to flip it around, and if you noticed, you have a deeper top part and the bottom part. You can decide where you want to place it. This one I placed on the back side. Just note that on this one I actually put it a little bit too low. Just remember that you're going to be boxing the corners quite a bit. All of this, I want to find the center point on all the panels and the zipper, just to be a little more. For the exterior fabric, you're going to place your zipper with a pull off to your right so that when it closes you can close it off in this direction, but it may vary depending on what your preference is. So with the lining right side down, so the right sides are facing each other. At this point I'm going to carefully move the zipper end over out of the way. You can use double-sided tape if you want to. You can always also kind of make sure that you have it in the right direction so that when you open the zipper, the right side of the lining will be open. Just to double check yourself. I'm going to take it to the sewing machine and I'm going to sew with 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way across, back stitching on both ends using a 2.5 millimeter stitch length. And it's time to top stitch. And I'm going to take it to the sewing machine and top stitch with a 3 millimeter stitch length, 1/8 of an inch all the way across. And I'm going to start down the side, back stitch, come up, and then pivot and start the top stitching line. That way you don't get all the back stitching showing. And then come down and then back stitch inside of the seam. So I'll come a little bit further, about stopping about 1/8 of an inch from the edge and turning, and then back stitching. Okay, so next it's time to find the center point of the larger panel and the lining. where the lining is going to be right sides up, because you want to make sure that the right sides of the lining are facing each other, and to line up the center points. Again, here, if you want to use double-sided tape, you can. If that helps. And precision really pays off, because as you can see in this little pouch, by really taking your time and using the double-sided tape, you get a really pretty finished product. You want to make sure that the sides are as close to being parallel to each other while you're centering this panel. And again, I'm going to move the zipper carefully because there's nothing stopping it. Okay, so right sides of the lining are facing each other. Now you're going to take the other exterior large panel and flip it to where the two right sides are facing each other and matching the center point to the center point of the zip. Again, making sure that the sides are staying parallel to each other. I'm going to take it to the sewing machine and back stitch and sew all the way across 1/4 inch in seam allowance with a 2.5 millimeter stitch length all the way across and back stitching. Now I'm turning the stitch length back down to 2.5. And this is where it's useful to have the longer zipper so that the zipper head can stay out of the way and you don't have to go around it and create a bump in your line. Okay, so when preparing the other side for top stitching, you want to make sure that you give the lining a gentle pull as well as the top, making sure that everything lines up. Okay, so then I'm going to take it to the sewing machine and top stitch across, matching the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Once again, starting down on the side and the seam allowance and back stitching. Okay, so next, once it's top stitched, you're going to want to place the panel right sides facing down with a larger panel on top. To bring the deep panel and meet it, I'm going to shut this for a minute. I'm going to bring down and line up the bottom edges, and I'm going to clip it. And the zipper is right here, but that's what gives it this top bit right there. Clip center bottom and center top, because the next thing we're going to do is draw lines to box the corners. So grab your ruler, marking tool. For the small, you're going to box in 1¼ inches. For the big pouch, I'm going to box 2 inches. Now whatever measurement you boxed in, you're going to repeat that same measurement and come in from edge and make a mark. So in this case, for the large, I'm coming in 2 inches. For the smaller one, it would be 1¼ inches. And then you're going to go from this corner to this corner and draw our line. And if you feel that the zipper's in the way, you can slide it out of the way just a little bit. Okay, making sure that your zipper's in the center so you don't accidentally cut the zipper head off. You're ready to cut. So I'm going to just press this line in so your bottom's well lined up. I'm going to remove the clips, move the zipper head out of the way a little bit. I'm going to get a nice crisp line there. Open it up, and we're going to take the tab, top stitch down both sides 1/8 of an inch from the edge, doing a 3 millimeter stitch length. And I'm placing it on the side that the zipper actually closes, but it's up to you. It's really preference. And I'm going to come off with the tab a little bit just to make sure that I catch it. And I'm going to clip it. So next, put the right sides together, and you'll see that you'll be bending right where that crease is. I'm going to turn it so you can see it better. So far I have the main fabric and the lining on this side, and it's kind of butterflied open. Bring the right sides together and the linings together. It's going to feel a little strange because we're going to bend right where that crease is. I'm going to bring it to this side and meet up the edges. So all along I want to make sure that this lining's out of the way and clip it. It's going to feel a little different than a normal pouch. If you've done a normal pouch before, bend the linings because this is going to be that much longer, right? So you've got this kind of flappy bit in the middle, but you want to line up the bottoms of the lining and clip it. And while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and mark a good turning gap, just so that you have about 3 inches to be able to turn the pouch through. Okay, so just to review, you've got your right sides, exterior sides together, and your lining sides together. You've got this kind of sausage roll in the middle. It's going to feel strange, but you're going to start right there. So if you press it like this, you'll kind of feel it. And so you're going to start, and don't worry about leaving a gap, we're going to finish that. So you're going to start here, and you're going to come down at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, and you're going to stop here, and then you're going to pick it up over here, 3/8 of an inch, come and back stitch and stop. You want to make sure you're back stitching here on either side of the gap to reinforce it, and sew down, and then start here, and again stopping at about there. So you want to make sure that you are turning your stitch length back to a 2.5, and then you have it at 3/8 of an inch, and I'm going to start with a back stitch. It's my Velcro shepherd wanting me to open the door so he can lay on my feet right as I'm trying to sew. I'm going to repeat the same by flipping this under. Now this time you're going to be working on this edge, repeating the same thing. And it's going to be a little tricky because it's thicker on this side. But don't worry, if you can't get all the way back, you're going to catch it in a little bit. Okay, so we have this bit left that we need to take care of. Just want to make sure that the tab stays in place and is straight. Okay, so all that's left to do is to take it to the sewing machine, and let's first make sure that the zipper is out of the way. The zipper's about there, so I know I won't hit it when I come and sew this down. So I'll back stitch it, sew down, and join the line on both sides. You can back stitch over the zipper just to reinforce. Now it's time to box all the corners. And what we're doing here is we're making sure that we are lining up the seams. And you can decide if you want to butterfly the seams or if you want to splay them open. I think with waterproof fabric it's easier because it's a little bit stiffer. This is where it's good that you back stitched, because this is when there's some stress when you're handling it. And when you come across, you're going to come across with a straight line. Okay, so I'm going to repeat that for the other two. Okay, so I'm going to take it to the sewing machine and sew. with a 2.5 millimeter stitch length, going 3/8 of an inch for seam allowance. Okay, so it's time to wrangle. You just want to make sure that you've closed it all up. I think this is going to be my pouch, full of perfect imperfections. Lessons learned. Even though this is my see how many did I make? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just shows you that everybody has struggles with the sewing sometimes. And that's okay. That's how we learn. Now I want to take that and iron it down before I push the waterproof canvas down. That way I can get a nice press. It's pretty deep, so you can put all your makeup in there. And I hope that your tag is a little bit straighter than mine. Until next time, happy sewing! If you hear something whining, it will be my dog right outside the door. But I'm going to bring you in, and this is number 2 of trying to do this video for you guys. As the first video that I shot, I did overhead and my noggin was in the way, so this is round 2.